All right.
So Kula and Coco, are you able to do that?
Yeah, I have opened the file.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, welcome to a workshop that I trust. It's not me being an expert or anything. This is a facilitated process. So the idea is to get you to start to think about the teams that you're working with, and to to particularly there's a process. Looks like Fiona's with us, but she's also on shift at the refuge. So yeah. So the first thing that we want to do, you remember in the foundations course, there was a unit there called Authority, Leadership and Membership. And there was a graph where it had the designated leader was on the top of the graph, and underneath was the team members, and there were a series of lines, vertical lines. Do you remember that diagram from the foundations course? Yeah. So basically, what that diagram is showing is that for a good team leader, a designated leader, it's to be able to empower the team members to be able to take more and more responsibility, to be able to move from low level of competence or low level of skill and responsibility to move up. And so that's really what we're doing here. We're looking at our teams and we're wanting to see them trained, because training is the key to be able to help them to carry more responsibility. And in the carrying of more responsibility, there's the whole thing of becoming more skilled. So just thought that was an important concept or a picture that we're familiar with, that we can just be leaping off from. I do have a slide here that I want to show you. It talks about what is competence, and just to open it's only just to sort of open the discussion for a small while, because I actually want us to be quite practical in how we go about this. So I'm going to share screen, and I'm going to bring this up. Can you see that on your screen?
Yes.
How competence is made up of 3 elements. So there's the skill itself. I don't know if this is new data for you or you've seen it before, but all competence is made up of these 3 elements. There's the skill itself, there's the underpinning knowledge, which is what you need to know to be able to do the job well. And then there's the attitude that is also part of competence. I think sometimes we just think of competence as only the skill, and you know, so like the skill of driving a car, for example. When we understand some of the mechanics, some of the way that cars function, that can be the underpinning knowledge that helps us to do a better job of driving, particularly, for example, if we're, you know, driving in conditions where the road is, the weather's bad or the road's bad and things like that. Maybe it's not so important if everything's going smoothly. But it's also, the attitude comes in as to how we drive. And we all know, well, I don't know if we all know this, but, you know, when we, when somebody cuts us off in traffic, and we sort of, our driving skill can be affected because we suddenly feel really disadvantaged by what's happened, and so that affects us. So yeah, just just a few thoughts on what makes up competence. Okay, I'll close that. So where do you start? And I think if you're looking at that template that I've sent out, oh, Fiona, I won't have sent one to you.
Can I just grab mine from a printer? I'll just be back.
Okay. I'll just help forward one to Fiona.
I felt unloved for a minute there, Dan.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, yeah. There we go. It's coming to you now. Yeah, so where do you start? So we've got a team. We're in a part of a team. We're conscious that there's some training that's required. Where do you start? And so the suggestion is that we start by working out what are the skills that the members of our team need to develop in. So it's actually stepping back and asking that question. So this is, in technical language, it's called a training needs analysis, but that just simply means it's just working out what the training needs are. So they can be a whole lot of different training needs. They can be technical, they can be social, soft skills, all that sort of stuff. So I'm just wondering, as you think about the teams that you're part of at the moment, this very moment, what are some examples that you could identify? What are some areas that your team could grow in or develop skill in? They're all well competent and got it all together and don't need any training.
Certainly for us, one of the things that we're doing is festival training over here in Japan, and we really have begun working intentionally in training them in leadership so that we can step back. So leadership of a festival. So not just have them on face painting, but have them supervising the face painting or being in charge of the whole booth, or having that bigger picture then of perhaps half the activities. And so.
Yep. Very significant skill, isn't it? The whole, just a basic leadership skill to care for some others that are with them doing a festival activity. Yep. What about others?
For me here, we don't have a team yet, but we've got partners, churches that I've been trying to work together with, and a bit of networking and all of that. One of the needs that I've seen again and again is the church leaders not being able to prepare good sermons, and oftentimes they don't have the skill. I think maybe I should say the skill to do a good Bible study, because majority of the church leaders are untrained and unexposed to a formal theological training. So that is one of the things that I am seeing. Yeah.
Wow. That is a very big training need that you've identified, Coco. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting when we get to the part of the workshop today where we start developing some plans for that sort of training. But this is where it might be helpful to be breaking it down. Okay. What about for others? Just what sort of training needs do you see in the team that you're working with?
it's been some time or few months that I have a kind of team here who are closely working with me. But what I have been seeing is there is lack of this community feeling, in a sense that they are not really able to work together. They want to be individual most of the time. So I was in a way thinking that if there could be a way that we can really work together, if we can input to them the sense of community feeling, that we are together, we have to be together, and we have to reach this goal together, that which the burden. I understand that everyone has a burden, but there is no team together, working together. That sort of feeling is missing.
Okay.
So that's the area where I really want to maybe bring or reach out to them.
Okay. That's really, yeah, that's a really, on the surface, it's general. And this is where part of designing a training program is going to be to break it down a bit and find out how can we make it practical? Yeah, so we're going to come to that. Fiona and Anne, did you have something to throw in at this stage? You have to unmute, Anne, yeah.
I opted into training because we're really keen to do some training in Poatina. Not me personally, but
Yeah.
I'm very interested in what's going.
The process.
So
Yeah.
I'm not able to contribute a lot to the.
That's all right. Okay. Okay. Did you want to throw something in, Fee, or just you're listening at the moment? Okay. Well, can I suggest that you write down, so in your template or type it in, there's a place for, I've said there, what are 3 things? Perhaps we can cut it short. Just what's the top thing that you want to address or you want to see developed in your training with your team? Can you see that on the template?
Is that the part work for you to write down the 3? I think that's probably not.
No, that's it. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah,
The
write
3
down.
You can see that members of your team need to become more skilled at.
Yes, yeah, that's it. So this is a very basic training needs analysis. It's just simply identifying what the needs are first. That's the very first step.
Yes.
So I had a couple prepare a PowerPoint. That's come out of this experience the last, and some of us have got certain skills up to a certain stage. But yeah, anyway, that's just an example I use. All right, so if you can write down simply what's a training need that you're aware of. All right, this is the tricky bit, is to actually write down an objective. In other words, to write down by the end of this training, what do you want your team to be able to do? And so the thing here is to try and make it as specific as possible. So, for example, being able to prepare a PowerPoint is quite specific. But if it was something like community feeling, that's quite general. So if we said, for example, that by the end of this training, we would like the members of the team to be connecting together, or for there to be a feeling of community in the group. That's still quite general. So the trick is to try and break it down into sort of bite-sized pieces so that you can actually design a training program that's going to hit the target, as it were, reach the objective. So this puts you to work, doesn't it? To write down by the end of the training, what would you like to see that's measurable as an objective. So, for example, one I was using was about listening. Members of my team will be able to listen better, but I thought, no, that's too general. You've got to break that down. Members of my team will be able to do a better job of leading those who are in their group in the festival. Yes, but let's break it down further. And so for listening, it came down to something like being able to read the process and being able to create an atmosphere where the other person feels safe. So you can actually drill down to that. So can we sort of, maybe with this one with Kula, just for a moment, stick with that. How do you think we could make that more you can grasp it with your hands, creating a community feeling?
Does it have to, perhaps, thinking of this Kula, does there first need to be a way for the team members to discover they're not just a nice group of friends, but that they have a common goal, or I don't know. What can be the thing that could be worked towards that they would all, you could measure at the end that they have in common as a purpose?
That's a really good suggestion, Anne. So it's probably a few, like it's not going to happen in one training session, is it?
No.
This developing a community feeling. It's going to be a process. But one is if the whole thing that in our training where we talk about functional leadership, that every member of the team has a contribution to make, and that we can't be complete unless we have the contributions of the other members of our team. That whole ministry of what it means to be the body, the leg, the eye can't say to the ear, I don't need you, and all that sort of stuff. That we're the thing about being interdependent. We are interdependent. So that would be another. Probably you're going to have to break it down into sub objectives, and you can sort of have one that they come to see what the goal is and are committed to that. Another one could be that they're able to see the uniqueness of their contribution, but also the contribution of others, that sort of thing. Any other thoughts that you could throw in there?
Yeah, I think what comes to mind for me is like in the foundations course, we have the broken square activity. So it's perhaps when it comes to Brother Kula's case, it's about helping them to have that paradigm shift. It's a bit like the pandemic. Unless I am saved, none of us are saved.
It's a good example, yeah.
It's a bit like that. So I mean, but one needs to have that paradigm shift so that what I'm doing here is the kingdom work, what you're doing there is the kingdom work. We're still in the same thing, and we don't need to compete, or I don't need to take credit for what I do, kind of thing. Maybe I think what I look at is a paradigm shift that needs to take place so that there is some commonality that is taking place. So the fellowship and the community feeling that we belong to the same what we're doing is the same thing. So
Yeah.
something like that. But I've got a question, Dean. Just going back to work for you to do, because the objectives become very clear as you were talking, but write down 3 things that you can see members of your team need to become more skilled at.
Mm.
So for example, let's take my example. Objective is for me to be able to see, let's say, the church leaders and the youth leaders being able to teach the Bible, being able to prepare a sermon, being able to conduct a Bible study, a small group Bible study. So in this case, work for me to do, write down 3 things. What could be some of the skills that they need to develop?
This is yeah, because you've got you could say a high level objective. It's a complex training need for the leaders of your church.
Yes.
So breaking that down into more bite-sized sort of objectives, sub-objectives, if you like.
Okay.
Like, for example, one of them might be that you run a basic course in helping them to interpret the Bible. So doing some really basic hermeneutics. Again, yes, it's a situation where how much can they relate to, and what's going to genuinely meet them at their point of need, and what's going to genuinely help them. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So writing down, getting clear what we have a saying in Fusion, which comes from Covey, the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You begin with the end in mind. So it's that's why it's basically what we're doing. We're saying, okay, what's my aim in conducting this training? And it can be in a class, it can be one-on-one, it could be with a piece of equipment. It doesn't matter. Yeah. All right. Do you want to have a go at writing down something? Would that be a good use of our time? Just to have a crack at it, and writing an objective. Do you feel like you've got enough sort of underpinning knowledge, as it were, enough sort of stuff at this point to be able to write something down? Sort of feel like I'm asking a fairly challenging question. Would that be right?
I'm just thinking if we could just go through the boxes and I could personally, I could do that. I can look at the objectives and things like that, but I was just also thinking if you could look at the boxes, some of the boxes here. For example, like there are some stuff that you've written. Time to work out where you're going to find the resources.
Yes. Okay. Yep. Well, let's
things like that. If you can give us some, examples or maybe life experiences, stories, or something like that.
Okay. Well, yes. I'm just conscious that it's good for us all to travel together, and I'm getting a feeling that Kula, you're sort of finding this a little tricky. So perhaps if I could offer to catch up with you after this to sort of actually find out how you could write an objective, for example, if that's where the blockage is, or would you be okay with that? You are muted, bro.
Yeah, I'm following the conversation and then actually writing down the objectives, the one that I have raised.
Oh, that's good.
So a little bit busy on that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
good. Okay. All right. Well, obviously, being able to name what the needs are and write it into an objective is your first port of call. Your second port of call is saying, well, okay, where am I going to find the resources to bring to the need? And it turns out that we've got some big ponds to big reserves of resource. And one of them is the foundations course. There are lots and lots of resources in the course itself that we can actually pull out and utilize. You know, we've done this in our fusion programs here in South Australia. We did that. We used to run a program with young people. So we'd take out things like the self-concept diagram and just spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes on that, and on listening, and we'd do stuff on that. And, you know, and so it's not running the whole course for the members of our team, but it's just taking particular relevant sections and then applying it to the needs of our team. So that's one way to do it. Another way is the core Fusion Australia's core course. It's a similar sort of thing. There are they're really big units, some of them, but you can just sort of take a little section of it and then make a training program that's based on that. And the other thing is that there's possibly other training that you've done, which isn't foundations or core, but something else that you can take. So these are sort of standard, I think. There's probably no surprises with what I'm sharing. But one that I want to focus on is this unusual one. And it is your own life. Like, you won't realize that you are competent at certain things. And we get so used to it that it's called unconscious competence. We do it without thinking. You know, it's just become part of us. It's a habit, if you like. And like, for example, driving a car is unconscious competence. You just drive. You don't think about it. It's become part and parcel. But if somebody was wanting to learn how to drive and they came and talked with you and asked you to teach them, well, then you've got to sort of step back and say, well, how did I learn how to drive? You know, what are the steps of what do I need to master, etc., etc. So yeah, like, if you so for example, you've raised this thing about community feeling cooler. What's been your journey with that? You know, how did you come to the point where you could be a facilitator of the community coming together? What paradigm shifts, what changed in your thinking so that you got to this point? You see what we're doing? We're sort of kind of realizing that our own story is actually a rich pool of resource, that if somebody can, some of us can do it without we've just got the skills to be able to step outside ourselves and do that. Others of us are actually going to need somebody to facilitate that process, somebody else who's can ask the questions and we can answer, and you can sort of because we think when we're talking rather than being all just in our own heads. So yeah, so that's yeah, just watching the time. We've got about 10 minutes to go. So that's the second step, if you like, the second port of call. So you've worked out what the needs are, you've worked out resources, and now the thing is to bring those resources to the need. There's just one thing that I've put in here. Just make sure that your resources are going to fit your culture. Because, so in other words, a lot of our resources have been developed in another culture. They haven't, you know, if we're in India, they haven't been developed for the Indian context. They've been developed for another context. And so when we're bringing material from one culture into our own culture, we just got to pass it through, I call it a culture filter, and just simply ask the question, does this actually work in my culture? I'll give you an example. Listening, you know, we teach listening and in our course, and you know, listening is always something that we need to grow in and learn how to do better, isn't it? But if you're in Australia here, if you have Aboriginal people in your group, you have to change some of the behaviours that help the other person to feel comfortable. So, for example, you don't keep eye contact because that is something that just doesn't sit with them in their culture. So that's what I mean, that if you're taking things from one culture, you know, like the Foundations course was essentially prepared in a Western culture. It was essentially prepared in Australian culture. The core course is similar. So we just need to, yeah, put it through the culture grid.
So just just a thing. Do you mean to say, Dean, that while listening, if you maintain an eye contact with the Aboriginal people, it doesn't help them to
That's
listen,
right.
or what is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's their
Yeah.
culture, and it can be wrongly interpreted from a white person's perspective that they're being, the word is shifty, or they're not being wanting to be honest, because that's something that we value in European culture.
So in our training, when we do about that listening thing, we talk about one of the important thing is eye contact. So if you are teaching a listening unit to this particular group, we really, I mean, this is real. I think this is where the rubber hits the road. Like understanding the culture, and you know, we may have a wonderful training materials, but contextualizing that training materials in a particular culture is so important. And I'm glad that you add this thing up there in the box.
Yeah, good on you, Kula. But of course, sorry, Coco. So what is it? How does it work in India? What communicates effective listening, or that you value the person? What sort of body language? So that anyway, that's okay. Well, when we get to the third port of call, which is actually the design of your basic training plan, you'll notice that the Foundations course has done it for us on one level, because you've got an overall aim in every of, you know, is this communicating? In our, when you have a training plan from a Foundations course, you've got an aim, you've got key learning objectives, you've got the journey, and then you've got a lesson plan. You can use that template for any kind of training. The aim is the objective that we just said. The key learning objectives are the critical thing, though. In other words, it's kind of like the stepping stones in your in the training that you're going to be delivering. And keep it less more than more. So, like, what are the three main things that I want to the trainees to learn in this, you know, 20-minute session that we're having with these people? Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I've got here. If I can just share my screen again. Whoops, I've got to do this first. Share screen. Okay, so so this is basically how I planned this workshop. I wrote an objective, which by the end of training, participants will be empowered to have the skills and confidence to conduct the training that their teams need. Worked out where to start. You know, you as the participants will work out some of the skills that your team needs. We looked at resources to meet the need, including the resource of your own life. Developing a training plan. Thing we haven't done is the last one, developing a training delivery plan. So we've got 4 minutes to do that. So the training delivery is simply, you know, what's the structure that's going to best help your team to be able to take on board what you're wanting to take them through. It could be as simple as a one-on-one showing them how to use the photocopier, or you know, a training plan that I had with Kula, if you don't mind me using this. I was teaching Kula. Now, I don't know a lot about MailChimp, but I was able to pass on all that I knew and not much more to Kula, and he's able to now send out MailChimps to you guys. So that was a little training, but it was obviously just done through Zoom. You could have a class, you know, like Ruth is running these classes with the these people learning how to use computers and that. So that, I mean, that's a training in its own right. She asked us to come and run some training. So yeah, you've got 40 minutes or so and you're talking to an audience like that. So it's just finding the best fit for the training. It's like we have a saying in Australia, when you're driving on the roads, you drive to the conditions. You know, you slow down if it's raining. If the road's bad, you slow down. It's the same sort of idea, that when we're delivering our training, you read the play, you read what's going to help the people in my team best to take that on board. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like we've sort of, you know, traveled fairly quickly and haven't had the time to really do the processing that I was hoping. But yeah, look, just to say, anytime you want to road test a potential training plan, you know, I'd love to you to contact me, and we can do a Zoom thing, and we can, yeah, it's.
Thanks, Dean. I was just thinking that anyway, I'm coming whether you welcome us or not. But thank you for spelling that out.
No, I would enjoy that very much so, yeah. All right, we're in our final 2 minutes. So any reflections? Has this sort of scratched in any way where you're itching? You know that saying? Has this been relevant to you?
Yeah, I think for me, where I am, having run some of the trainings, having recognized some of the needs in the churches around, and it helps me to recognize the importance of organizing myself in the sense of, you know, what we are talking about now. I think if I follow this thing, the people that I want to help will benefit much more than what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah.
So it's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, good on you, Coco.
Yeah, I was trying to say that thank you for this clear roadmap where I can at least start something. And then if I have any doubt or difficulties, I can always just give you a call or maybe message you or email you. So yeah, it's very clear. Thank you.
And just to say, I'm not the only one who has got the experience or the you know, the qualifications to be able to help. So, but I mean, Anne's a teacher, Jenny's a teacher, Fiona does a whole lot of training. Yeah, we're in there's lots of resources around, and we just need to, you know, give it a shot and ask and say, hey, what do you think of this? You know, I'm trying to do this, you know, how do we make it more effective? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm already thinking of things to help Kula.
Good.
Thank you, Jenny.
Great.
Just from the community teas that we used to have.
Yeah.
Great. That's great. That's great, Jenny.
Thanks. Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Well, yes. Anne, did you have something to throw in?
Well, I think time's gone, but you do have some good structures, Kula. For example, your morning teas. You know, perhaps you could get someone to tell that you tell your story, and then someone else on another day tells their story, and maybe on another day you do some of the training that Dean mentioned from foundations or core, but also things that make for intimacy, like, you know, everyone saying what's been significant this week for them.
Thanks, Marty.
Now, I'm sure you're going to be saying it wasn't long enough. It wasn't long enough. Was it long enough? No, it wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
Then I think you need to stop your recording. Just saying. I've